Welcome to Streaming with Two Dudes, a podcast about all things streaming. Each episode, we break down some of the best series, songs, movies, and shows. I'm one dude, Parker.
I'm the other dude, Jeff.
And dudes, this month, our theme is hooping it up with two dudes. And this episode, we are talking about Rise. But first, Jeff, what else have you been streaming?
I thought for sure my streak was going to end with this week's episode because I don't know, I've had 5-6 weeks in a row and I've been extremely busy and I didn't get to watch any other movies. However, my boy NF came through today. He dropped a new song on his new album coming out next month. Song was called Motto, and so he released the video and song today. So I have listened to that multiple times a day, watched the video a few times. I won't go into a lot because I talked about him a good bit last time, but man, give this dude a listen. If you like rap or hip hop, he's got to be one of the best in the game. And I feel like, and I know I'm a little bit older than you, but especially in the 80s, man, it's like music videos were such a big thing. And it seems like that's just not the case anymore. A lot of artists just don't do them at all, or they don't put as much time or thought into it. But I mean, NF's like an old soul when it comes to music videos. I mean, he's like, it's like a major production, all of his music videos. So I love him. So go check it out. He's got 2 songs released on his new album. I think new album drops next month sometime.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to all his old stuff. I really like him. So anyway, What about you?
Actually, I'm gonna actually have the streak that you haven't been having. This is gonna be my second week in a row. I have actually just been so busy this past week. Actually, like, I mean, some of you might know, just like through mentioning of it through the podcast. But like, I also dog sit on the side of also having a regular job, and so I've actually been fairly busy with that between both of my jobs. And just things going on in my personal life that I have not had time at all. I've mainly just been listening to music, honestly, like lately, the past couple of days, especially. I have been watching like some stuff on YouTube to kind of like go to sleep, but that doesn't really count, I guess. But yeah, sadly, I have not been streaming anything this week except for this movie, which I did find time to do this week.
Just did squeeze it in, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I texted you earlier, like I was like, you were asking me if I was still good to record today. Just a little peek behind the curtain, everybody. He texted me today and was like, "Hey, are you good to record?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "What about 9 p.m.?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'll be fine." I was like, that'll give me plenty of time to watch the movie for the first time. Yeah. So this movie, or well, this week we watched the 2022 film Rise. Jeff, what can you tell me about this film?
All right, first of all, a disclaimer right off the bat for both Parker and I. We're going to butcher multiple names throughout this podcast. Apologize to the actors, the real life people that's being representative. There's some difficult names. Neither one of us, especially me, I'm horrible pronouncing names. So I butchered his last name last week. Come to think of it, I even got his first name wrong last week. I was pronouncing it Giannis. I was pronouncing it like it's spelled, but no, he's just pronounced Giannis. Antetokounmpo. That's the best I can do. I just call him the Greek Freak. But and I also made another error last week. We need a fact checker on our show to come back and tell us, like, hey, you screwed that up royally. I mentioned that all 3 brothers played on the Bucks, and that is not correct.
Nope.
Giannis and what'd you say the nickname was? Thano?
Thano, yeah, I think they call him
Um,
Thano. That's what I heard of, at least like a couple of times when they were playing basketball. So that's what I'm gonna go
so
with.
the two
Like,
main guys that you saw featured in the movie,
yes.
technically the two oldest that are at home with the parents. Of course, you'll probably get into it in the recap. The very oldest they had to leave behind before the others were born with the grandma. But so the two older, Giannis and Thano, played for the Bucks and still do. And I think it's the next one down, uh, Costas.
Costas, yeah.
Uh, Costas. He actually played for the Lakers for a little while.
Hmm.
But he was on the team long enough to get a ring when they won the championship. I think back in 2020. The very next year, his two brothers won the championship with the Bucks. So they are. I got that part right. They are the first trio of brothers to win an NBA title. I just mistakenly thought they were all three on the Bucks at the same time. So anyway, there's not a lot of trivia or facts out there on this movie. As you mentioned, it's 2022, so it hadn't been out that long. Uh, a lot of either newcomers as far as the actors that were used, or ones that maybe, especially in America, we haven't seen heavily featured. Again, I'm going to butcher a lot of these names, but the gentleman that played Charles, which was the dad of the family, Dio Okiniwai.
Hmm.
Uh, he's had some smaller roles. He had like a small role in Hunger Games, Terminator, Genesis. He did star in a movie called Emperor, and he did have one of the main roles in a show called Shades of Blue. I don't know if you've watched that show. I haven't, but I have heard
I
of it.
have not.
And the actress that played Veronica, the mom, Yetad Badaki. Again, these names are right, but I do apologize. Um, this is definitely her first, I would say, like starring role, maybe in a big time movie. She did play in a TV series called American Gods. She did have a recurring role in the show This Is Us. And Parker, are you a Call of Duty fan?
I actually am not a Call of Duty fan.
Okay.
I am not. Yeah.
Well,
Don't
there
care for
goes
Call of
my
Duty.
plug in. Anyway, yeah, she did some voice work for Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. And she was also in a movie called What We Found. Now, the newcomers were the two younger guys that played Giannis and Thano, Uche Agata, and get this, his real life brother, Raul Agata. So
Oh,
they were
cool.
real life brothers that played the two older brothers. So yeah, for the guy that played Giannis, it was his first film. It was actually like March of 2021 when he was cast to play. Basically, he just saw a social media post from Giannis himself regarding an open casting call, so he tried out for it and got the role. Obviously, at some point, his real life brother got one of the other major roles. The director of the film, Akin Amatoso, probably the closest name I'll get right. Giannis actually served as an executive producer, so I feel like, I mean, obviously, any kind of movie like this is based on a true story or real life characters. There's going to be some creative liberties, but I feel like, especially with Giannis being executive producer, a lot of what you see is probably going to be a lot of what did happen.
Yeah.
Um, but it is based on the true story of three young Nigerian Greek brothers, Giannis, Thano, and Custis Antetokounmpo.
I,
And
I think that's right. I mean, okay,
we'll go with that.
in all fairness, we were raised in the South, so I mean, I
Yes.
went to public school, so we
So
have
did I. But
so don't let the fact that we have a podcast trick you into thinking that we know how to talk,
yeah.
because we can very much butcher things that we're just completely ignorant about, and
Plus, I was a
yeah,
math guy.
Nigerian names are absolutely one of them. I will 100%
Oh yeah,
guarantee. I tried to say this name every time I heard it. Every time they said it in the film, I was like,
it's
pronounced
tough.
it 3 or 4 times after that, and I was still gonna get it wrong. I know that for a fact.
Now
Um,
the actors that played the mom and dad, Charles and Veronica, were actually born in Nigeria. So I thought that was
really,
cool how they
that
were
is
able to
cool.
I don't know if that played a huge role. You'd think it would probably a good chance it did. But yeah. So as far there's not a lot of interesting tidbits or trivia out there. Obviously, the movie was filmed in Athens, Greece, which is, it's good that they use the actual territory that the story took place in. It did make it the first Disney production filmed entirely in Europe, which I found a little surprising because Disney's pretty well known, but first one entirely filmed in Europe. Uh, it did pretty well as far as of course it didn't go to theaters. It was one of those straight to Disney Plus type deals, but it scored a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes with the critics, 85% with the audience. So it was well received. And obviously, for those that follow basketball a little bit, you probably are at least a little familiar with Giannis. I prefer to go by his nickname, which is just the Greek Freak. He's been in the league for about 10 years. Me personally, I was not familiar at all with this backstory. I mean, I knew he came from Greece and that there was some other stuff that happened there. If I did hear the story years ago, like because I'm sure it was in the news and played a good bit, especially when he was drafted, but I did not remember any of the details. So I was definitely seeing and I guess learning about this story for the first time. So as far as that's all I got as far as
I mean,
information and backstory and stuff.
that was kind of a lot, man. I feel like you gave me more backstory than I'm going to be able to talk about with this movie. Um, because I mean, yeah, it was. I mean, this movie. Don't let how my recap go. Try to don't let that influence your score on what you think I'm going to give this film. Um, because I I mean, this movie was, yeah, we'll get into it here in just a second, but yeah. Is there anything else you wanna, go over before we get into this?
I will say this. March Madness is unfortunately just a lot less interesting to me now after my beloved Tar Heels lost to Virginia just a few minutes
Oh,
ago.
oh, I did not catch
Um,
that.
they've really struggled this year. They have extremely under. I mean, they were number one team in the country going into the season, and they have just had a less than thrilling season. I seriously doubt they get invited to the NCAA tournament. Most experts agreed that they definitely had to beat Virginia to have a chance of being selected, and that didn't happen. So could be the lowly old NIT tournament for my Tar Heels, but still love this month. Still love basketball. Last week we covered a basketball movie. We got another one this week. Only
Yeah,
this one
I
is
don't
more
really know.
focused on the NBA.
Yeah, I really don't know, sorry, to interrupt you if I really, like, explained this, but, like, I as much as I love basketball, I actually love basketball movies, I do not watch organized basketball almost at all. Um, I played it a lot, and for some reason I used to be, like, super obsessed with it whenever it was, like, I would say probably from, like, the Michael Jordan to, like, the Kobe era, like around the time that Kobe and Shaq were both on the Lakers was about the time that I kind of stopped watching it, like, during that little run. That was when I kinda started to fade off after that. So I really haven't been into it, so, like, I have no idea before going into this movie who any of these guys were. Um, Even though, like, whenever they said the 2013 draft, I was like, "Oh, this has been 10 years and I have no idea who these people are." Like, I've never felt so out of a loop in my entire life, as I had finishing especially the end of this movie. I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, I can't believe how out of the loop I am, but anyways,
So you weren't familiar with Giannis at all?
no, no, I
Okay.
was not.
It's I mean, he's pretty well known, but you would think, and I don't know if it's just because our culture tends to sway more towards, I guess, American raised athletes
Yeah.
that guess behave and speak more and what we're accustomed to.
Yeah.
Um, but you would think Giannis would they would be doing more to push him as the face of the NBA, just because of how good he is. He's not the type that's you never hear about him getting in trouble off the court.
Right.
Just a great representative. His English is pretty good. It's not perfect, but I mean, you shouldn't expect it to be because it's probably a second or third language, probably third. But so yeah, I mean, he's great. But yeah, he's. I guess I shouldn't be shocked you haven't heard of him because I don't know. He's not featured as much as I think he should be, especially since I mean he helped Milwaukee win a championship, just a couple years ago. But
Yeah. All right. Um, so we are going to get into the recap. The way that we do it differently. If this is your first time listening, the way that we do this is me, a guy who has ADHD, watches this film, and then I try to recap it completely from memory. Jeff, somebody that also doesn't have a great memory, will grade me on the scale of A plus to an F, just like we were in school, on how well I recap the oral history of this film. Um, this one is probably gonna be my lowest grade, I can almost guarantee it, because I only did get to watch this, and, once, and it's going to be, whew, um, it's gonna be a
but
doozy.
it was also very recent, so it should be somewhat fresh on your mind.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I usually like to watch the ones, especially the ones that I haven't seen before. I like to watch them twice before doing this because, the one time I just try to, like, enjoy it is the film, and then the second time I try to actually try to commit things to memory. Um, but yeah, this is definitely gonna be interesting, because, I mean, at the same time, like, a lot of the things that happen here are just kind of things slowly happening over time, but, like, nothing really happening, so, like, me describing it um, is gonna happen a lot faster than the movie. I mean, obviously, but I feel like it's gonna be be super fast. Okay, so we're gonna start out, it's 1990, we're in Nigeria, we see 2 parents, they are leaving, their son in the care of this woman. We realize that they are trying to escape. They get on a bus from Nigeria, and they make it to Greece. They were unable to get passports, so they're illegally. We fast forward a few years, and they now have a big family. They still haven't gotten visas, but all their sons that are there have all been born in Greece. So Charles, the father, he's working, he's providing, but, they're struggling. He's teaching his sons about soccer. The 2 oldest sons, Giannis and, Thanos. I'm gonna go with Thanos, Thano, and, and they go to, teach them soccer. One day, the boys, find out about, basketball on their way home. They decide to play, and they get, pretty good over a little span of time, and their father finds out. He does not approve of this. He is against it. He's afraid of the boys getting, popular and then finding out uh, that they're illegal and, being deported. So, eventually, the boys, they only have 1 pair of shoes, they're having to share the shoes, the father gives in to, like, I think it was a high school, yeah, their high school coach, they're playing for their high school, we got, our boy Thano, he is, like, the leader, he's, like, the all-star, he's, like, leading the team, he's doing good, he's, like, the captain. He's got his thing going, he's, been working so hard, and then they have this little recruitment thing for, I believe it was like international thing, international scouting, and right before that, Thanos, I think he sprains his ankle or breaks it, rolls it, something like that, and we have to have our boy Giannis step up to the leader role, and he, dominates. He really takes it, starts shining. He shows up to the international draft, and he shows out. He gets scouted by a couple of people, but they're afraid to take him because of his visa. He gets found by this guy who wants to represent him, and so they take it. He gets this deal with Spain, and Spain, is going to take him, but they're not sure to get him visas, and they decide to instead go to the NBA draft. They go to Giannis goes there. He shows out, people like him, but there's a few teams, that are kind of wishy-washy on him, especially with the whole visa situation. Uh, and um, one of the teams promises that, some of the teams promises them because, part of the contract is that all of the people can get visas in his family and they can all be brought to America. And so they go through the draft, and one by one, he has not gotten picked until he gets to the 15th pick, the Milwaukee Bucks. And who do they pick? Who do they pick? Well, he's chewing some food right now. So hang on just a second, and he's going to come and tell us who they picked for the 15th. Who did the Milwaukee Bucks pick for the 15th pick, Jeff?
The Greek Freak,
Yes. Yeah.
Giannis A.
Yes. And everybody celebrates, and then we get a little montage at the end about how Thano was picked, and then their little brother Costas was picked for the draft, and Costas was the first one to get the ring. Everybody's, happy for him. And the end. Yeah. How'd I do?
I'll give you a B. I thought it was
B.
pretty
All
good.
right. Hey, I'll take that. That was pretty good.
Well,
Well,
couple
thank you.
just
Thank you. Thank you.
minor missteps, couple things I wish you would have mentioned, but recap it. There's so many different ways to summarize it.
Yeah. I mean, it was I mean, I feel like I got it pretty because I mean, a lot of the movie was like them practicing, them, having conversations about, like what's right and what to do and everything. And I don't know. Yeah, Jeff, so what did you think about this movie? What did you think about 2022 Disney Plus's rise?
So I love watching movies based on real life stories, especially in the sports world. And I mean, I truly thought this was a remarkable story. I mean, just from the very beginning, where the situation his parents are in and having to leave behind their firstborn with their grandmother so they can flee the country and just go to a safer, country with better opportunities like Greece. There's obviously anytime you see a movie like this, you often wonder, and I even researched it, the classic fact versus fiction, how true was the movie to, the real life story. And Giannis was, executive producer, so we, feel like it's pretty close to the true story. I didn't really find a lot of information as far as what parts may be deviated, from real life, but no, I thought it was a remarkable story. It's one of those movies where I tend to grade movies based on their potential and what part or how much of that potential that it met. And I guess what I mean by that is you take a movie like last week, He Got Game.
Yeah.
We grade on a 5-point scale. So to me, the ceiling is a 5 for a movie like that. So I grade it based on how well I thought it meet its potential of being a 5. A movie like this, I feel like the ceiling is probably going to be a 4 anyway, just because of the type of movie. It's kind of direct to Disney Plus type deal. So I'm kind of grading it based on the ceiling and how close I thought they got to that ceiling. And I can't remember. Now I get confused of what we mentioned before we started recording and what I've already mentioned, but I may have already mentioned I wasn't that familiar with Giannis's backstory. I've always liked him as a player. I do keep up with basketball probably a lot closer than you do. Not so much on the NBA side. I'm a big college basketball fan, but on the NBA level, and you kind of even mentioned kind of when you were into it, you didn't mention teams, you mentioned players. And that's kind of the way I am with the NBA. I tend to gravitate towards players.
Yeah.
Or maybe if it is a team, it's not that I'm a diehard fan of that team from, day one. It's I might like their current group of players and I might like the style of play. Like there for a while, I love the Spurs just because of their style of play. There were a couple of players I really liked. They also had a couple of players that played at North Carolina. And then like here lately, I've been a big fan of the Warriors because I love Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. I love their style of play. Um, I live closest to the Charlotte Hornets, but they've not really been relevant in a number of years. But if they happen to be good, I kind of keep up and root for them, by default. But but yeah, as far as this movie, first of all, what do you think I'm going to give this movie, and what are we grading it off of? Five what?
5 pair of Air Jordans.
Nice.
All right. So out of 5 pairs of Air Jordans, I think you give this film, I think you're gonna give it a 4. I think you're gonna give this one a 4.
Okay, very, very close. I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
Okay.
Um, and it's not that I really have a list of things to kind of pick at from this movie. I thought the performance by I'm not even gonna try to pronounce their names, but they played Charles and Veronica, the parents. I thought they did really well. Was really impressed with them. The younger guys, I thought they did well. I mean, you could tell they're not experienced actors, but definitely better than Ray Allen. Anyway, but I thought they did well. I thought it was an enjoyable film. I read one person's review and it kind of summed up what I thought about the movie. That it was an extremely remarkable story. I just didn't feel like the movie was as remarkable as the story was. If
Yeah.
that makes any sense. Maybe slightly underwhelming, but still, I give it a 3.5. Which, like I said, I went into it thinking the ceiling for this movie was probably going to be a 4. I just didn't think with this type of movie it wasn't going to likely get a 4.5 or a 5 from me. So the fact that I thought 4 was a ceiling, giving a 3.5 tells you. I mean, it was. I thought it was a very good movie. I thought it was very well done. Like I said, the story is just incredible. Um, Mainly because it's based on a true story.
Yeah.
And just what the family had to go through. If I did have any complaint, and I got a feeling you would probably totally agree with with me on this, there were a lot of parts that I thought were too Disneyed,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would have liked to have seen the raw experience
Yeah.
because of what their family went through. And they show you all the struggles and all that. So I'm not saying they didn't show that, but
Yeah.
I got a feeling there was a lot more struggle and conflict within the family. I don't know. It felt like it was too rosy. Almost they played it a little too safe.
Yeah.
I would have liked it a lot more raw and just show us the ugly truth. Even though you're Disney, put it all out there. There are some things I would have liked to have seen, which it's not really a complaint because obviously they did the movie where it ended pretty much with the draft. I'd really be interested to see the adjustment to American life as well as, just the instant fame and fortune. I
Yeah.
mean, because you got to figure this all happened so quick. I mean, he went from, just trying to get signed and just earn money for his family to, being say, hey, no one's going to take you on, but hey, there's an outside shot you could get drafted, and then bam, I mean, he gets drafted, and they move the family out there, and things just happen really quick, and people that aren't as familiar with the NBA, it's not unusual for them to take a chance on like a young raw prospect from overseas. But what is a little unusual is that they play them right away. A lot of
Mm.
times they'll use a pick and just they'll keep the player over there in Europe for 2-3 years to continue to develop over there. But Giannis, I mean, they put him on the team right away. So I mean, they took a big gamble on him just
Yeah.
because he was so raw, and you just never know how kids are going to perform at the next level. And that's just basketball wise. I mean, what he had to go through personally, emotionally, culturally, there was a lot going on there, and a lot of times that impacts a player's ability to perform at the next level. But obviously, he's handled it really well. Um, so yeah, I love the story. You know, I do think, like I said, that I would have liked to see a more raw version of the story, but for what it's worth, I thought it was very good. I definitely recommend it. It's not gonna make my top 10 list of sports movies, but it's definitely a solid choice. So yeah, 3.5 Air Jordans
All right.
for me.
Um, so yeah, I I mean, yeah, I really can't say much more than what you said. This movie,
You're gonna give it a 3, by the way.
I am gonna give it a 3 actually. That's exactly what I was gonna give it. It's barely better than average. Like you said, this movie is like it just reminded me of one of Disney's, based on a true story sports films. Like, you know what I mean? Like it follows the same formula, even though it's a different story. It's just somebody's in it. Like you said, I don't know. There's a lot of things I feel like that happened, especially toward the end, that they just kind of skipped over. You know what I mean? Like things that were just so lucky. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It just felt so weird that like they just so happened to like randomly get this, like guy that's you know, never represented anybody. And I'm sure like to some extent, like this is all true, but like I'm sure it was a little shadier things going on, like then, it just all happened to lining up, there's no way that some shadier stuff did not go down than what this movie portrayed. Uh, I'm sorry. Like there's no way. I'm not that naive.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
I did love their loyalty to that agent though.
yeah,
The first guy that took a chance on him, because that other guy tried to come and pretty much, steal it from him, but they stayed true to the original guy, which I thought was really cool.
yeah. But I did enjoy it. I enjoyed just seeing where it was gonna go, especially since I didn't know anything about either anything. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know who was gonna go. I didn't know if they were gonna go in the same draft. I was, I guess if I knew what was gonna happen, I feel like this movie would have been pretty boring for me, honestly. But not having seen it, I probably enjoyed it, and not knowing the results of everything, I probably enjoyed it a little bit more than I probably should have. But I still think it's a little bit better than your average, like even probably Disney, sports film. I enjoyed it better than most of them. It's not as good as Cool Runnings or anything like that, but still pretty good. What about
I,
you? What about your dude or dud of the week this week?
all right, there was one scene I was going to comment on as
Oh
well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Go for it.
Probably my favorite scene in the movie. I really was probably one of the most heartfelt was when they were at the draft, but it was before the draft took place, and they were all sitting down with the Nike rep, and I forgot exactly how she said it, but she asked him, hey, what makes you different, what sets you apart,
Yeah,
and the way the movie's portrayed, he kind of struggled quite a bit while he was in America, just trying to take it all in, but you got to remember the amount of pressure that he had to feel because his family's well-being is completely on his shoulders. Um, Whether they're in prison or not, it could literally be on his shoulders. So I thought they did a good job of, although it wasn't verbally expressed, you could tell that was probably weighing on him a whole lot, and he was struggling with how to answer her question. And then he kind of said, and then he kind of went into you know me and my brother sharing shoes, and just kind of elaborated on their background and their family struggle. And
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, if Nike don't just jump on that for that very reason,
Right.
I
Yeah, that
mean,
was probably
they
one
would
of
be
the best.
dumb.
Yeah, that was probably one of the best scenes for me too. That actually like because I mean honestly I was more moved from the at the end scenes, you know, like when they were actually showing clips of their real life and everything. Like I was
Oh
more
yeah.
moved in those like last final 5 minutes than I was the rest of the the rest of the movie, to be honest. Like, but
Yeah,
yeah.
and I hated to hear that, that the dad passed away.
Yeah.
And gosh, I think he was probably only in his early mid 50s, so he was pretty young. And for him to be such an important, part of the story and their lives, I hated to see that, um, but yeah, it did have some really good scenes. And to be honest with you, the way the movie started, I actually had really high hopes because I mean it was pretty intense right off the bat,
Yeah.
very dramatic, and I'm
Same.
like, at first I'm like, okay, Disney, I see you, and then it kind of got more to the rosy rainbows and puppy toes version. I
Yeah, it
thought
was like as
a
soon
little
as they
bit
got to
after that,
Greece. Yeah, as soon as they
but
got to Greece.
I'm gonna go with a dud this week because I haven't
Okay.
picked one in a while, and I think maybe his name was Paco, but
Yeah.
he was the big time arrogant scout.
Yeah.
He didn't want anything to do with Giannis at first. Then we talked about it briefly earlier that the one kind of no name scout kind of took a chance on him, but then once it was apparent that Giannis was the real deal, and you could tell this guy saw the dollar signs, and he decided to swoop in and try to basically buy them out and basically feed them lies that this other guy's not going to be able to deliver. And I think he even threatened, you know, outing them out as far as their immigration status.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, come on. And the thing is I know it's just a movie, but his type exists and they do that kind of stuff every day.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, he's definitely my dud for this movie. So what about you?
I'm actually gonna go with a dude this week. I'm gonna go with Charles. Dude was a good dad. Uh, he made some tough decisions sometimes, but he always, did what he thought was best for the family. And I'm gonna go with, I mean, obviously he meant, so much to all of them, like they wound up even having a foundation in his name to, help immigrants from Nigeria get to Greece. So yeah, I think that's what the foundation was for. I didn't do my research on that, but I think that's what it said at the end of the film. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's my
Yeah,
dude of the week for sure.
the mom and dad were awesome. I mean, not
Yeah.
just as actors, but just the characters in the story.
Hmm.
Very inspiring, and just the way they provided for their kids, and you felt so bad for them because what was it? I think it was the mom when she was talking to the lady. It's like, yeah, you tell us to get a legal job in order to get residency, but in order to get a legal job, you have to have residency. So it's just
Right.
like, so it does kind of expose I guess, the inconsistencies and the challenges of immigration and stuff, in a lot of ways. So, but yeah, the parents were great. That was definitely probably my favorite part of the
Yeah.
story was just them, which is kind of odd since the story was centered around Giannis.
Yeah.
But yeah, the parents were great.
Well, next week we are going to continue our hooping with two dudes theme, and we are going to be watching Hustle, which is a Netflix original. So it's gonna be our streaming original for the week. Next week.
I
Yeah.
got a feeling that one's not going to be a rosy Disney type.
No, no, I think we can get a little bit darker with some Netflix original. It's got starring Adam Sandler, and I think it's just actually gotten some good reviews. I haven't watched this one, so I don't know. Have you seen this one?
Actually, I have not. I'm looking forward to it. Are you a big my mind just went blank. Adam Sandler fan?
Actually, yes, I am. Yeah, I actually am a huge Adam Sandler fan. Like Billy Madison came out whenever I was probably. I mean, and plus I watched him on Saturday Night Live. I was a big Saturday Night Live kid, and then Billy Madison came out when I was like in second or maybe first or second grade. But I was watching that when it came out on VHS and watched every time he came out with a new film. I watched it still watch all of his movies, even the dumb ones. So yeah, I'm a pretty big Adam Sandler fan. Love that dude.
Yeah, I love him too, but I've actually not seen a whole lot of his more serious dramatic roles.
Oh, you're
It's
missing
it's
out.
it's mostly just, the real stupid funny type stuff. I'm sure I've seen one or two of his more like dramatic type stuff, so I'm anxious to see this one, because I know there was a lot of buzz around his performance on this one as far as awards and stuff. I don't think he won any, but there was a lot of buzz around it.
Yeah. Jeff, you got a weird question for me this week?
Random question of the week. All right, so we are inching towards springtime.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much you up there near Canada, but a lot of other parts of the country, we're inching towards spring. So, my question to you, Parker, is what is your favorite smell?
Ah, that's a weird question. Oh, what's my favorite smell? How
That's why.
weird do you want to get on this podcast?
Oh gosh.
um, honestly, I mean, honestly like a lot of citrus smells. I'm a big citrus guy. I like citrus smells. So like, I like the smell of like clean too. I'm a big clean like a clean house or like I like the smell of like fresh cut hay too. I don't know. There's like lots of things. I could go on and on. I don't know if I have a particularly favorite smell, but yeah.
Gotcha. So since we did a Disney movie, you decided to give me the Disney answer. I'm glad about that.
What about you, man? What's your favorite smell?
So probably this won't shock you at all, but I mean I am a Christmas junkie.
Of course.
So one of my favorite smells is just Christmas tree smell, just all the Christmas candles, the smell of a fresh cut Christmas tree, wreaths, the whole bit. I just luckily we still had a bunch of we had like a Christmas tree air freshener
Yeah.
sprays that were in both bathrooms. So of course, we're still using those because they're still going. So I'll still get a whiff of Christmas here and there, even going into March.
Nice, nice, nice. Of course you would.
Exactly.
All right, Jeff. Well, you got anything else before we get out of here this week?
Well, I mentioned earlier my Tar Heels, man, is oh well. Good luck to all the other teams and all the other fan bases. Um, one of my favorite months. It just won't be as great since I don't won't really have a team to root for. I guess I'll just find some teams to root against, which will be Duke. But yeah, looking forward to next week's movie. And
Me too. Me
I
too.
don't, and it's also one of those movies I've heard a lot about it, but I know zero pretty much of what it's about.
Same.
So I'll go into it pretty blind. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Awesome.
And Park and I are both really excited this week because something big is going down this weekend.
Oh yeah, we got our new one of our favorite franchises is got their new film coming out and we are going to be going to watch that. So by the time this comes out, we will have watched Scream 6 and man, I'm so excited for it.
And I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast or just you personally, but I don't see a lot of scary movies in the theater. My wife hates scary movies. My son's never been a big fan of them. So I've just not generally been the type that would go to a theater by myself. I think the movie Signs, which I think we've referenced on the
Ooh,
podcast before, was probably the last one that I saw in the theater, if not possibly
man.
the only one. And one of my favorite. I love that movie so much. So yeah, I'm psyched. I'm also doing the 4DX. Parker highly recommended that experience. So I'm going all out for this new Scream movie. I love Jenna Ortega. I've just recently been introduced to her when I saw the last Scream movie and then went right into Wednesday on Netflix.
Speaking of Jenna Ortega, she recently did a Hot Ones. I don't know if you ever watched that. Like Hot Ones. It's where they like this guy brings on
Oh, the Wings.
celebrities. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And she did Hot Ones, yeah.
I saw just a short clip on it.
Yeah, it was funny. It was funny.
Seemed like she handled her own pretty well.
Yeah, she seems like she did pretty well. Her eyes were watering pretty early on, but she handled it pretty well.
Yep.
All right. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for doing this with me every week, man. I appreciate your time and everything. Thank you so much to everybody out there that listens and who supports us. If you'd like to support us, you can do so by sharing the podcast to friends, family, whoever else. I'm not going to tell you this for legal reasons, but if you felt free to graffiti it, I would not personally stop you. Get the word out there. You can also comment, rate, review, and subscribe if you are not doing so. And if you would like to support us financially, there is a link to our Patreon. And if you're just curious about what we look like, our links to our socials are also in the show notes. And links to our Facebook group, which you can go there. You can join us in conversations. You can also vote on our listener's choice episode every month. We do plenty of things there. Also do some announcements. We involve people in the community, including the new theme song, which you heard at the beginning of the podcast. Yeah. So thanks to everybody that sent the voice clips in for that. I really do appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks again. And remember, if you buy your son's Air Jordans instead of paying rent, they will absolutely come through and save the day.
Peace out.
Nice. I actually had a good one this week.
Pretty good.